there gamers, did you happen to have multiplayer exploits causing community division on your Dreamlight Valley 2024 bingo card? Me neither, yet here we are. And you guessed it, that's exactly what we're discussing in today's video. Now, to be fair, the exploit that we are discussing is not new to 2024. It actually became possible the moment multiplayer was released to Disney Dreamlight Valley. However, after being covered by some rather large creators here on YouTube, it has prompted a lot of conversation. And I've had a lot of friends and viewers asking me to share my opinion on the matter, while also taking an in-depth look at what all of this means for the Dreamlight Valley community. I feel like it would be best for me to open explaining exactly what this exploit is, because I'm sure there are some of you guys out there, even though that this is hotly talked about and debated, I'm sure not everyone knows about it. Now, to be clear, I will not be showing exactly how to do the exploit in this video, and that's not because I'm taking some kind of moral high ground. It's only because there are already so many videos out there that tell you exactly how to do it. The main thing I want to talk about today is the division and my personal feelings on the entire situation. Now, with that out of the way, let's dive into exactly how this exploit works. Essentially, this exploit allows you and a friend to go into multiplayer and duplicate any droppable item over and over, multiplying it every single time you do. In fact, you can go from having one of a certain item to 1,000 of a certain item in a mere 12 to 13 minutes. And like I said, this includes anything that you can drop. Iron, gold, training manuals, dark wood, you name it. Not only does this method work extremely fast, but it is also incredibly simple. In fact, it's just as easy as the Scrooge Shop refresh exploit that players have been enjoying since the beginning of early access. As more and more players discovered this new exploit, it was only a matter of time before some of Dreamlight Valley's larger creators covered the topic, some having a very open-minded stance towards it, while others were very harsh and critical of the exploit. Of course, the overall Dreamlight Valley player base has met this coverage with a bit of a mixed response. Some players criticized creators for pushing back against this exploit, while pointing out that these very same creators have been using this Scrooge Shop refresh exploit since the game came out, which I think is a really fair and valid argument. But honestly, I see both sides of this argument, and I'll explain exactly what I mean by that after we cover a little bit more about how this new exploit can affect the game as a whole, and what some players and creators are concerned about. Of course, like we just mentioned, several players have pointed out that they don't think it's quite fair for others to cherry pick which exploits are okay and which are not. I do think duplicating thousands of items in half an hour is a little bit more extreme than refreshing your Scrooge shop, but I still see their argument as valid. After all, who are we as creators to say which exploits are okay and which are not? Now, I feel like it's very, very important for me to mention something about my playstyle before we get much further in the video. If you watch my content on Twitch or you keep up with me at all, I'm sure you're aware I've never used exploits. I've been playing the game for over a year and I have never refreshed my Scrooge shop. Does that mean I have an issue or a problem with anyone that does? Absolutely not. The reason I'm not doing exploits is not so I can take some moral high ground and say, oh, look at me, I'm a good guy. Like, that's not it at all. It's just personal preference. For me, I love going into Scrooge's shop and just getting lucky that day and finding something new. It's exciting, it's fun. But if you like to refresh your Scrooge shop to get that item you've been missing out on, or if you're just tired of getting bad luck every single time you log into your game and you're sick of it and you just want to go ahead and get that dream item you've been looking for, I say go for it. Play the way you want to play. Again, the reason that I don't refresh my Scrooge shop is because I just like the fun of seeing what's in there that day, and it gives me a reason to log in each day and hope for the best. Regarding this new exploit, I have a similar approach. I like the logistics of grinding for my materials. I like calculating how many time benders I have and how many mining companions I have so I can maximize my resource production in a certain amount of hours. I feel more accomplished when I make this massive valley build and I know that every piece of pathing and every fence was something I had to grind to create. But does that mean I turn my nose up at valleys that duplicated their items to make their things? No, absolutely not. Because I can recognize that I am in a very privileged position. I'm a full-time content creator. That means it's part of my job to go live and play Dreamlight Valley 5 to 6 days a week. And because of this, I have nearly 2,000 hours in the game. 99% of the player base doesn't have that privilege. And if you've been dying to decorate your biomes and complete your valley, duplicating items to finally have that luxury isn't really something I can fault you for. Now, I'll dive into my personal position a little bit more further along in the video. Let's talk about the two camps we have. Well, really, there's three. There's a camp in the middle that's like okay with whatever. They're like, look, do it, don't do it, I don't care. And then you have one side, which is highly opposed to the exploit. This side's leading argument is that it's unfair and it can give players an advantage in things like dream snaps. But again, so can refreshing your Scrooge shop, which no one's really had a problem with, except for maybe a minor amount of people, I guess. I don't know, I haven't talked to many people who have had or taken an issue with it. In addition to some players feeling that it gives an advantage in things like dream snaps, there are also a lot of hardline gamers out there in the gaming community who just do not believe in exploits at all and feel that any use of an exploit would in a way be cheating. However, that's a bit of a tough argument to sell in a game like Dreamlight Valley, because this is not a competitive game, with the exception of Dream Snaps. So let's revisit that topic. Look, I can see how having more resources than the next person could be beneficial in a Dream Snap competition. Just like you have more furniture options or you have more clothing options, it could help you elevate your Dream Snap. But with that said, I've participated in every single Dream Snap competition that Dreamlight Valley has ever had. And I've kept up with the photos that rank well through Reddits and Discords. And to be honest, you really don't need thousands of resources and a complete furniture log to always rank well. Sure, in some situations, it could possibly provide a slight benefit, though I feel like one of the biggest factors of Dream Snaps is your overall skill when it comes to photo composition. So how you utilize your foreground, your background, your lighting, your angles. It's still entirely possible for a player with limited resources and decor to submit a high-ranking Dream Snap. So while I do believe that this criticism of the exploit is somewhat valid, I don't think it has as big of an impact as people make it out to have. I think the strongest argument for those opposed to the exploit is preventing predatory practices. And I know what you're thinking, Senpai, what in the world do you mean by that? People are just duplicating items. How can that be predatory? Well, if you spend any time in Dreamlight Valley groups on Facebook or Reddit and even Discord servers, you've probably seen players selling items for real world cash. Since not all players out there in the world are aware of this exploit, some players that are aware of it are duplicating thousands of items and then selling them in multiplayer for cold hard cash, which is just a horribly immoral thing to do. Essentially, they're just taking advantage of people that don't know any better. And hey, if you want to spend your hard-earned money on a stack of iron ingots or some dark wood, then it's your money. I'm not telling you what to do and what not to do with your finances. I'm just saying for the people that are selling these resources, they know good and well that they're using this duplicate to build up a bunch of resources, and instead of sharing that exploit knowledge with other players, they are using the exploit and selling the resources to other players, which is, it's a hustle, I guess, but man, I don't think I could ever do that with a clean conscience. I remember the same thing used to happen back in Animal Crossing. You had these treasure islands. Of course, even without the exploit, this can still happen through the modding community. So certain PC players with certain mods could still do this even if the exploit was patched out. Essentially, as long as we can drop items for other players within multiplayer, there are probably going to be some predatory practices. So even though this is a strong argument against the exploit, removing the exploit will not completely resolve this issue. Now, what about the people that are in support of this exploit? This group does not want to see it patched or fixed in any way, and I believe this is largely largely due in part to Gameloft's very grind-intensive resource collection methods. If resources were a bit easier to get, I think that this would be a lot less of an issue. Like I said before, I'm in a privileged position where I can spend a lot of time grinding for materials. But other players, like let's say you work as an RN, and you get 2 hours a week to play Dreamlight Valley, and you just want to decorate your valley. Well, of course you don't want this to get patched or fixed. This actually lets you enjoy the decorating aspect of Dreamlight Valley, whereas before, all you were able to do really was just grind and grind and grind, hoping that one day, months down the road, you would have enough materials to build your dream valley. On top of that, people that are pro-exploit in this case have also stated that this exploit levels the playing field. And what they mean by that is that people that play on PC have access to mods that can alter the number of items you have and can provide you with near limitless benefits. And that's something that's simply not an option on consoles, but this exploit is. Now, if I'm being honest, I think way less people are utilizing mods compared to the amount of people that are catching on to this exploit and doing the exploit. Of course, I don't have any tangible proof of that, but I don't know. I know a lot of PC players for Dreamlight Valley, and I don't know a single one that's running mods, but I'm sure they're out there. The mods exist, so there's people using them. So in my opinion, both sides have valid standpoints. I totally get it if you're against the exploit, and I totally get it if you're in support of the exploit. And with that said, we've brought up multiple times that we've had other exploits in the game, so why is this exploit in particular causing such division? With some creators going so far as to say that this exploit can ruin Dreamlight Valley, and some players saying that it literally breaks the game. But is there any truth to that? Well, we'll have to take a look at Dreamlight Valley's game model to dive deeper into that topic. So as you all know, Disney Dreamlight Valley is a live service game. Live service games are games with a dev team that is consistently working to drop and produce new content, new seasons or star paths, new stories or quests, new events, and more as time goes by. Games like this would include Diablo 4, or Fortnite, or Sea of Thieves, or Palia. These are all live service games with a dedicated dev team that is consistently dropping new content. One of the most important things for a live service game is player retention. Have you ever wondered why we can only order 25 items a day from Scrooge? Have you ever wondered why the resource grinding can be so time-consuming? Have you ever wondered why so many Star Path tasks take multiple days to finish? Well, the answer to all of that is quite simple. In order for live service games to survive, they need to keep their player base engaged. And they can do this in a variety of ways. Logging in daily to check your Scrooge shop, or pick up your flowers, or hit up your mining nodes. All of these things keep the player engaged in Dreamlight Valley. Now, with this exploit, logging in to gather materials from mining or fishing or foraging could simply become a thing of the past, as you suddenly find yourself with hundreds of thousands of resources to work with, never needing to swing your pickaxe again. Of course, this does pose a problem for Gameloft, as it removes one of the core mechanics of the game that is the most time intensive. I don't know about you, but I would probably say 70% of my 2,000 hours has been grinding materials. But does this ruin the game? Well, not exactly. Even if you do have unlimited materials, you're still going to have so much to decorate now with Eternity Isle and with our current valley. And even if you do completely finish your decor, participating in the weekly Dream Snaps is a great way to keep the player base engaged. There are also loads of quests and stories within Dreamlight Valley that you can follow through, and all of these things can serve to keep the player base engaged. So no, I don't think this exploit is going to destroy Dreamlight Valley or ruin Dreamlight Valley, but I do think it does pose a very, very big problem for Gameloft, because once people do get all these resources and they do finish most of their decor projects, the amount of time they spend in the game will drastically decrease, which lowers engagement and makes it more likely that they will move on to another live service game or switch to a competitor life sim. So for Gameloft, this new exploit certainly is a bit more of a problem than its predecessors like the Scrooge Shop refresh. but I don't think it's necessarily going to break the game or ruin the game. But with that said, I do think this is something that is indeed on Gameloft's radar, and I think it's something they are going to try to patch somehow, but this is going to be a tricky fix because it just exploits the save mechanic of the game. There aren't a lot of ways for them to fix this. One way for them to fix this, I believe, would be coding in an auto save mechanic, like when you're in multiplayer and you're using the exploit and you drop an item, it could just auto save anytime you drop an item. That one change would actually fix this issue, and that's something I just thought of in 5 seconds, so I feel pretty confident that the people at Gameloft are probably already scrambling to find a fix, because even though I don't have much of a problem with the exploit, I do think Gameloft's gonna view it as damaging to their bottom line, and I'm just trying to be realistic about what to expect. So I feel pretty sure Gameloft is going to try and work out a fix for this. But as far as I go, I'm not really too concerned with whether people do it or not. I don't really think it has any kind of impact on me. I look at this exploit the same way I look at the Screwed Shop exploit. Even though, like I said, this one's a little bit more severe, but I don't like using exploits, so I never use the Screwed Shop exploit, but I talk to hundreds of people that do, and I've never judged them for it. I've never called anybody out or said it's unfair. I wish them luck getting the items that they want to get. When it comes up, I just explain why I don't do it. And the reason I've decided not to do this exploit is pretty much the same reason. I like the feeling of, being rewarded for the grind. I like looking at my valley, like when it's built up or when I make a new area, knowing that I like grinded for all that. And then when I look at my storage room and I look at my chest and they're nice and full, I'm like, yeah, it took me a little while to get here, but we're stacked, we're good. It's a fun feeling. And again, I'm in a very privileged position where I can put a lot of time into Dreamlight Valley. And if I removed grinding, I'd probably run out of things to do pretty fast. So now that you know my opinion and my feelings on the matter, and you know why Gameloft may be addressing this sooner rather than later, at least I'd be really surprised if they didn't, I'd like to go into the outro of today's video by leaving you with some heartfelt words that I think the overall community could benefit from. Now, like I said, for some players out there, using this exploit is probably very, very tempting, especially if you have limited time to grind. If I were in that position, I may do the same thing. Like I said, with nearly 2,000 hours in Dreamlight Valley, I'm in a privileged position, and I think it would be very unfair for me to cast judgment upon others or go out of my way to try and push for this to be fixed as fast as possible. Now, you may have expected my closing statement to have been something more along the lines of deterring people from exploiting and encouraging players to enjoy the grind, but that's not what I'm gonna do. There's a much more important message I want to send today, and that is a message of unity. Regardless of whether you are for or against this exploit, please try your best to be open-minded and understanding when it comes to the positions of others. Instead of calling everyone who exploits a cheater or calling everyone who prefers the grind a tryhard, consider turning the other cheek or putting yourself in their shoes. It's okay to be passionate about whichever position you take. Just try not to force it on others, as this only serves to further the divide within the community. Regardless of where you stand on the issue, it's obvious that we're all very passionate about this game, and we're all part of the same amazing community. We have to accept that as long as exploits exist within games, players can and will utilize them. And if it's not having a direct impact on those that aren't exploiting, then there isn't much cause for judgment. With all that said, I do believe that time and Gameloft will see this sorted out in the not so distant future. But who knows, maybe this will get left alone, just like the Screwed Shop refresh. Though if I was a betting man, I would say that this is a high priority fix for Gameloft, for the reasons we discussed earlier in this video. With all of that said, I would love to hear your thoughts and comments about this exploit and the surrounding controversy. Let's just do our best to have a civil and open-minded discussion regarding this entire situation in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for your time today, and good luck decorating your valley.